If I can't buy any new comic books right now, why not open an order I placed a year ago? Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video, I'm going to open up an order that I placed with Mile High Comics all the way back in February of 2022, right at the end. So almost a year ago to the date and time of this recording. And I don't know if I've officially made this clear, but I have put myself on extreme restrictions right now. I am not buying any comic books. I am not participating in New Comic Book Day. I am not pre-ordering any comic books. I am not buying any back issues. I'm not sneaking off to an LCS or local show and fingering bins or whatever. I'm just avoiding it completely. And it's a total psychological experiment for me to figure out, number one, can I actually do this? I have given myself roughly like 6 weeks total, so not too long, but long enough for me where I do start to itch a lot and getting kind of the shakes, and I hope it is related to the hiatus and nothing else. But I am really, really curious just to see as I go through this process of taking a break from acquiring comic books to figure out what are some other things that I would like to do with the hobby, and also just take a moment to appreciate what I have. And one thing I know I have are orders that have kind of piled up that I haven't had a chance to really look at. And this happens to me from time to time where in the moment that I'm placing the order, I do feel like I'm buying good books. I'm looking at value. I'm looking at books that have potential graded value and so on, kind of the same story. But what ends up happening is there are some orders that I just look forward to opening more than others. And then when that happens, some of these orders just don't seem as exciting anymore. And I'm going to open one of those orders that I that are not as exciting, or just I would say more of a standard back issue type purchase. I do think some of the books in this order will be interesting, as they always are for Mile High Comics, particularly around the condition of the books, because it really is sort of a condition mystery box where you know the books that you're getting, but you just don't know how close to near mint they're really going to be. And now that I don't really have orders to compare this order to, this order now seems a little more exciting. I'm like, okay, well, let's see. What books did I pick up a year ago? Have the values maintained? Have they gone down? Why did they go down? What books did I look at a year ago? Why was I targeting these? And what was the thought process there? So there's a little bit of a interesting, I think, experiment that's has to do with letting some books sit around. You may not have unopened orders of comic books sitting around, but you may have a pile of books that you just haven't looked at in a while, and maybe you want to press them, maybe you want to grade them, catalog them, put them up for sale, but you've just ignored them for some reason, and that's what happens. Some books get your attention and other books don't. And that's kind of the same with me with orders. And part of me feels like if I've already completed sort of the chase and the hunt, sometimes the orders aren't as interesting. I think I've talked about this before, where it's sort of the art of the chase in terms of tracking down comic books that's can be just as fun as and exciting as actually acquiring them or getting them graded or just adding them to your personal collection. And I think when I look at the order details for this order, I think that even the types of comics that I'm looking at now, I think that tells me that just sort of my collecting philosophy continues to evolve. On one hand, I'm looking at the books that I purchased and think I would probably go ahead and buy them again today, but at the prices I paid, well, maybe not. I talk about this too, where every comic book starts to become attractive to me at a certain price point. So it's not to say that just at a lower cost these books would be more interesting, but I do feel like I'm far more selective now here in 2023, where I'm not just jumping on every book that I see and I look at it and say, well, if I graded this one and it came back a 9.8, it would be $100 slab that I only paid $5 for. And I think that I was just kind of consumed by that thought. And what is happening now is not every book has that value. Not every book has that potential. So I want to get to the unpacking of this order, and then if you'll stay to the end, I'll show you what I paid for these books, compare them to fair market value, and also if I were to get these books graded, I wonder if I would consider any of these books to still be value picks. Okay, here is the order that I placed with Mile High Comics at the end of February 2022. And you can see full transparency here. The ship date, a little hard to see, but right there, March 17th, 2022, still here in this envelope. A little embarrassed, but doesn't matter. It arrived. It's been sitting here. I'm ready to open it today in February 2023. I always choose FedEx as my shipping option. I try to unlock free shipping. So here it has remained in this FedEx envelope until today, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up. All right, let's get to this. This is very exciting. It's almost like I just bought these comics or ordered them from Mile High a couple of weeks ago and they arrived. I'm just going to pretend so I can get through this break that I'm on from buying new comics. But nevertheless, here is the order unpacked. So let's get to it. The first book, Vigilante #1. This is from DC Comics, and this is the first ongoing solo series featuring Vigilante. And if I remember right, although I'm not a huge, let's say maybe like second tier DC fan, I think that there was some news or speculation related to Peacemaker and Vigilante showing up either in the Peacemaker series or Suicide Squad. This one's a tough book with this sort of yellowish color. It's almost looks a little cream or faded. Has a little bit of dirt here already on the book right there by the staples. A little bit of creasing as well. I don't see many color breaks, so I'd say probably in typical condition of a book that you'd get from Mile High. Next up is Balder the Brave, and I ordered 3 copies of this issue just because they were so affordable. And this was back when, I still can't quite figure it out, but I cannot order more than 1 copy from Mile High. I feel like they just changed that a long time ago and really forced every customer to purchase only 1 copy of an issue per order. So there's a 3rd issue of Balder the Brave in here, but this is the first solo series featuring Balder the Brave. So I think we're starting to see already a little bit of a theme here with this order. But absolutely, Walt Simonson on this, one of my favorites of all time. And if I'm trying to think back around, early 2022, probably some speculation related to Thor: Love and Thunder, but doesn't really matter. Always great to add books like that to the collection. Next is Iron Man #12, and this one's interesting because this is a recently released book. This is from the 2020 Iron Man series. I think this one came out in 2021, and this issue of Iron Man features an amazing Raza cover of Miles Morales as a DJ with the Iron Man bobblehead right there. But why on earth this is on an Iron Man book? This is one of the things I think about comic books that drives me absolutely crazy is when they put some sort of variant together, even if it's like an anniversary of a character or something, or this absolutely drives me crazy. I totally believe that if this cover were on a Miles Morales book, let's say this was an incentive 1/25 on any Miles issue, it would be one of his greatest all-time covers. The fact that it says Iron Man on it, but see, it's like a 10 years of Miles anniversary, but just a super cool cover, a tough book to get in high grade with the all-dark background, kind of like a dark navy blue, and I just paid cover price for it. It's marked Raza near mint, but it's just an open order variant. So I'm curious to see what this book grades out as, because it's I consider it to be kind of a new release from Mile High, where it doesn't have that sort of additional back issue inflated price. It was just a cover price book. Here's the other Balder the Brave. So I got 2 with a backing board, 1 without, but there's that 3rd issue. This one did not have a backing board. This is Captain America 341, covered by Ron Frenz. This is a homage to Daredevil 43. Cap versus Iron Man. Love this kind of style where it's so typical of these sort of late 80s, pre-90s style where you've got Iron Man in the red and silver. and Steve Rogers wearing his red, white, and black costume. But love this, one of my favorite Iron Man covers as well. Love that homage back to 43. There's a bunch of random first appearances, cameo appearances in here. I think there was some speculation related to the character from Falcon and Winter Soldier, where this is the first appearance of Lamar Hoskins as Battlestar, which was a reach at the time, but still great book nonetheless. And next, also without a backing board, is Young Avengers #2. I'm a huge fan of this run of Young Avengers, the original Young Avengers run. This is the second appearance of the Young Avengers. And in this issue, Cassie Lang discovers that she has superpowers. And this is also the origin of Iron Lad, who is later revealed to be Kang. So with Ant-Man Quantumania releasing this month in theaters, and we're going to get our full dose of Kang the Conqueror on screen. I think possibly eventually we're going to have a full throwback and tie-in with Iron Lad and Young Avengers down the road. Next is Amazing Spider-Man 307. This book features the origin of Chameleon, specifically where he got a power upgrade. Also an all dark, all black background cover, so tough to get in high grade. Great McFarlane cover, or debatable whether it's great or not. It's kind of an odd looking cover, but if you're a McFarlane Spider-Man collector and chaser, you're well aware of this book. But at the time, I was trying to collect all of the McFarlane ASMs, and this was one of those that I was kind of acquiring from different sources and was having trouble getting this one as a 9.8 candidate. So hopefully this one grades out. All right, another one without a backing board. This is Black Knight #1. This is from 1990, and this is the first solo series of the Black Knight, Dane Whitman. So again, thinking back a year ago, we've got some Eternals related news. Also, the actor playing Black Knight signed to a multi-picture deal, and definitely was feeling one of those, well, if you can't get the first appearances of a lot of these characters, then look at their first solo series issue. So I think I was big on that at the time. I mean, clearly I got several books like that, but yeah, I don't know if the Black Knight currently in February 2023 is as interesting or talked about right now. And that was part of the gamble. Whether the order sat here unboxed or not, I was acquiring the books nonetheless. So it is interesting to see, as some of these characters, it does take possibly even years to actually develop into something on screen. And also just speculation that comic book characters, comic book stories are going to show up in live action. Is that really still worth speculating on? You know, it's still fun for me. I do enjoy it. But could I have picked up this book for the same price today? Probably even less. All right, they must have just ran out of backing boards. They're trying to cut costs at those giant Mile High stores. This is Watchmen #2, and I can already see just some spine ticks increasing. These are really, really tough. Harder to get in high grade. It's tough to see here, like, are all those marks on the bag or on the back of the comic, and I don't want to take it out and check because there's just this little thin layer of gloss on these books that picks up fingerprints like crazy. My goal of getting all 12 issues of Watchmen slabbed in a 9.8, I may just need to abandon that altogether. It's a lot tougher than you think, and I think it would be way more worth your while just to go ahead and get these books slabbed already. All right, and I picked up another issue of Watchmen. This is Watchmen #6. This is the origin of Rorschach. This specific issue, I have many of these, and they all kind of run in the grade range of somewhere like a 7.5 to a 9.2. Again, just like I said with Watchmen 2, just tough books to get in high grade. All right, and then I've got Amazing Spider-Man 372, pretty severe stack increase. You can pick that up right there along that. So this one's definitely going to need some sort of press. This will happen from time to time where Mile High will see a book like that and there'll be no color breaks at all along the spine. You can see it looks it's pretty decent right now. With the stack increase, you're kind of looking at a 9.6 max as is, but if I can get that out with a quick press, then it would be a 9.8. but they'll kind of do that with some of these books. If there's a stack increase, they just slap near mint on it and send it out, but don't understand that that's probably a pretty easy pressable defect, but they're just not in the business of pressing books. They'd rather just sell the issues raw. The last book is X-Men Adventures #1, and I'm laughing just because I bought this recently on eBay. I won like a 5-book lot. This is another one kind of along with Watchmen that for whatever reason, I'm just having a really, really difficult time getting 9/8 candidates of this book. And I have the 5 issues from eBay, and I think I've picked up at least 5 more from Mile High. And they're all quite different. Some of them have drastic miswraps. This one looks to have kind of like the same as ASM 372, just a really, really, really gnarly spine stack increase there. But it looks pretty good otherwise. So I'm really, really hopeful that I could work on this book and get it into a 9/8. It looks to be one of the better copies. And as soon as I say that, of course, there's what's going to prevent it from getting the 9/8. So even if I did press this out, it probably going to max at a 9/6 because of that. It's almost like just a slight tear. I mean, it's a really, really bad spine tick. It almost looks like there's page tearing there, but it's not quite, but it's ugly. So there it is. I don't mean to end on that note, but this book, for some reason, it's really tough for me. But now, even though X-Men 97, the animated series that's coming to Disney Plus in the fall of 2023, I have some time between now and then if I just wanted to pick up a 9/8 copy. I was hoping I could find these raw and get them graded myself, but it may just not be possible. So again, are these the most exciting comic books you've ever seen? Probably not. There are still some great books in here, no doubt. All comics that I've either had in my collection at one time or another or wanted to add. Now, would you consider them still to be value picks? I think that's the question, so let's find out. All right, here is that order that I placed with Mile High Comics back on February 28th, 2022. It was a $217.59 order. So while you could argue that maybe those books were not as exciting as some other comic book orders, I hope the values are exciting because I paid a lot for those books. And again, that's where just what was my mindset like, and I still feel like I was trying to force the whole like buy at a reasonable price for a high grade potential to grade to get value, and I was really kind of caught up in that. So let's see if these numbers have held up since the time I picked them up. So I've got the fair market value plugged in here in column U. That is the cover price, current fair market value of the most common grade, or the highest value of any grade. Hopefully that makes sense. Cover prices, raw fair market value is kind of all over the place. So it's kind of a general idea. And the point is that with this order, all of these books should be near mint. They're probably not, but many of them will be close to it, or maybe even be a 9.8 candidate with a press. So that's why I choose the highest value for the fair market value in terms of, instead of just the most common fair market value. Anyway, if I compare my total cost to the cover price fair market value, then I can see that I lost $45.59 when I compare the total cost of the book in column Z with the fair market value as reported by cover price. Now, Balder the Brave, $7 book. I paid $6.54. That's why I bought 3 copies. It was really inexpensive. But then look at Black Knight #1. I paid $44.94 for that book, and it is a $20 raw book. So my fingers are crossed that this book has value graded, or that was just a ridiculous mistake. Why I paid $45 for that book, I'm not exactly sure. I must have been caught up in some sort of FOMO, or I don't know. We'll see here in a minute if there's any sort of values if I got these books graded. Another loss here, Captain America 341, paid $23.34. It's an $11 book. I feel like that one probably has a little bit more potential, even more so than Black Knight #1. I could be wrong, but I think that it's just a great classic Cap Iron Man book. Another loser here was ASM 307. I paid $29.34 just for that book alone. It's easy to find. There's plenty of copies, and it's reported here by cover prices being worth only about $15. A couple of other losses. Watchmen 2, I paid $14.54. It's worth 9. And X-Men Adventures 24.54. I think that's probably around the price I paid for all 5 copies on eBay. Now, if you're like, see, eBay is better than Mile High, that's ridiculous. That's too much money. I did grade the 5 copies off of eBay, and they were all 9.2. I think maybe there was a 9, but mostly around 9.2. And again, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for the chance for the book to come back as close to 9.8 as possible. Unfortunately, with that color breaking spine tick on this Mile High copy, it's probably a 9.4. It probably maxes out on 9.6, or it just may even be a 9.2. So then the argument holds, well, if you're buying 9s and 9.2s, may as well get a 5-book lot off of eBay. So I go back and forth with that. But nevertheless, it was a $5.54 loss. Now, not every book was a loser. Young Avengers 2, I picked up for $16.54. It has a fair market value of $22. The big winner here for me is this Iron Man 12, the Raza variant. I paid $5.53, which was $4.99 plus the cost of insurance for the entire order that I distributed across all of these books. So $5.53 total door to door, and it's a $20 book raw. So that one was a nice pickup. Now, if I were to get these books graded, I'm looking for obviously 9.8s, but the thought is if I'm buying them all and they're near mint, they should be 9.4s because that's what near mint is. So what if I just took all of these books, put them in a box, shipped them off to CGC? They should all come back as a 9.4, right? Obviously, that's not exactly how it works. But if I were to put 9.4 just as a general guide, I want to see if any of these books have values. Now, in column V, you'll see the CGC value pop in here. And you know what? You're looking at it going, hey, they have values. It looks like it's worth it. Here's a $64 book. That Black Knight, thank goodness, is more than what I paid for it. Same thing, ASM 307, nice $48 value and a 9.4. $51 for that X-Men Adventures. Again, why am I buying so many copies of that? There's some collectability with that book. But when we actually scoot over on the sheet to CGC value and actually plug in the total cost to acquire the book plus the fees to get the book graded, you'll see I'm still operating at a loss, negative $98.16. Again, the losers are roughly the same. Cap 341, negative 23. Surprisingly, Young Avengers number 2, maybe because it's newer. It's a 2005 book versus the other books from the 80s and 90s. $26.67. A newer book from 2005 maybe. It's only $26.67 in a 9.4. Check out Baldur the Brave, $41.67 for that book in a 9.4. And I picked up 3. But still, only adding $2.44 of value. That's where the hidden cost / value of the slab is something that I always try and add into my calculations, because you look at that and say, hey, it's $42 in a 9.4. I only paid $6.54, but to actually pay for the grading fees and the shipping costs, it ends up being about a wash. You're better off just buying it slabbed if you were in the market for a Baldur the Brave number 1 9.4. The Black Knight number 1 at 64.33 is certainly promising. So let's take a look and see if these books were to get a 9.8, what kind of values we're looking at. And while I know this is not realistic, I like to see these books have value in 9.8, because if the value is high enough in 9.8, it's still going to pull the rest of the grades up eventually. And yes, as expected, many of these have good value here. In total, this order had a ceiling of $1,172.84. The 2 Watchmen books over $100, Watchmen 6 over $200, $260.33. Again, I think it's just the collectability of Watchmen, yes, but also just the fact that it's so hard to get those books in a 9.8. That's one of those sort of hidden value things that I look at. You'd say to yourself, it's not a great cover. You've got Rorschach's face or pattern on the cover. It's not all that interesting. It's definitely key if you're a Watchmen fan, but no like super significance around the book other than it's just difficult to get in high grade. X-Men Adventures, same sort of thing. Because it's kind of based on an animated series, it probably leaned kids book or younger audience, so those copies are typically beat up. $215.33 for that book in a 9.8. ASM 307, very, very difficult to get in a 9.8 at just a few cents under $200 for that book. Cap 341 at 175. Now the interesting one here, look at Black Knight #1. It's only 115.67. So what I would definitely consider this to be a mistake. What a mistake this was to pick that up for that much money. That book would have to land at a 9.8, and even if it did, I'm only adding $38 of value. That's not what I would typically do. It's not the numbers that I want to see. It's very unfortunate. So now, looking at this a year later, looking at what I spent, looking at these numbers, the book is really just not something I would recommend buying at that price. That for that sort of 9.8 value, those are the books that I would typically recommend getting around the $5 to $10 range. Certainly not 45. A good example of that is Baldur the Brave, and this is nice to see. $6.54 I paid in a 9.8. Baldur the Brave #1 has a fair market value of $151 in a CGC 9.8, a really nice value add of $111.78. So there was definitely a theme here where I was buying a lot of books that I considered to be value picks at the time. I have a number of books where it's the first character's first solo series, so could be considered a key if you consider first solo series to be a true key. I know even that's debatable, but that was part of the theme here as well. But man, some of these values just didn't hold up. But then again, I do look at this and I could flip the date to February 2023, and it wouldn't shock me if I put an order like this together. But I think for me, whatever I was thinking at the time, it hasn't really carried forward in terms of, was I really thinking about the Eternals movie, Thor Love and Thunder? Was I thinking of Quantumania and Cassie Lang as Stature in that? And should I pick up Young Avengers 2? Like, those thoughts are not swimming around in my head right now. I'm not thinking about that level of character speculation and trying to find books and search for those books related to Iron Lad and Kang right now. I just recently watched Wakanda Forever, and while I enjoyed it, I think that I am definitely disassociating now the live action Marvel with comic books. And while I appreciate and understand the take on Namor, for example, on screen, I thought the character was great, but it's just a different character. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. There's some definite references back to the comic books, but I stumbled on this article recently where a writer of comic book feature films or live action basically said they use the comic book material as reference points, but they try to put a different spin on the character so that even the comic book fans are excited, right? They want to give the comic book fans an opportunity to see potentially a modernized or upgraded version of the character. I know that's debatable whether it's truly a better version. I think that that's part of the discussion that can be frustrating, can be fun, can be exciting. But I think I am over this like attachment between the book and the character and the source material and what I see on screen. I think that just going forward, they're just going to be different. So while I still like to kind of speculate a little bit on that and pick up books that feature characters that are going to show up or rumored to show up, I think that I still have fun with that, but I'm not really looking at all of these characters and FOMOing and trying to tell myself that I absolutely need to have all of these books related to all of these characters that are going to show up on the screen, because you don't know which characters are going to show up and be ultra popular. I think I am just almost like in a alternate timeline sort of mentality. I'm allowing myself to enjoy what I see on screen, but also enjoy the comic book versions and the original source material as well. Thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.